Anil is our speaker here today who is going to talk to you about understanding Indian cuisine, and also, and that is a huge topic in and of itself. So, sir, I do not envy you. You've got a lot of work to do in such a little amount of time. So, I'm going to pass the microphone, so to speak, over to Anil to get us started. And if you just stepped in, I'll make sure that you have a handout as well.
Hello.
Perfect.
Good afternoon. I joined this wonderful place a few months ago. So we moved here to California, where I was working for over 20 years.
Can you
And
speak up? Microphone.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So I was saying that I discovered this wonderful place in September. We moved back here from California about 7-8 years ago, where I was working in Silicon Valley. And I found it was a little difficult to adjust to a small town. Then my wife here, Virginia, she's from this town, Janesville. And she found out about this place, and I came here, and many people asked me about Indian food. So Goli and I, we were talking, and this thing is somehow, okay. So I thought, let's do a program on understanding Indian food. If I can only get this thing, I can get comfortable with this microphone. All right. Okay. Anyway, my name is Anil Agarwal. I'm 71 years old. I'm born and raised in India, and I came to America 40 years ago. Of all the places, to Whitewater. And people ask me, why did you come to Whitewater? And I have no answer. It's one of those things in life that just happen. But it turned out to be, I need to try to go with help. This thing is not cooperating too well. I really don't know what to do with this thing. Hello?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, all right. Okay. So I came to Whitewater, and I was there for 7-8 years. And after I graduated in computer science, internet was just coming along, and we moved to California. Anyway, so I've been cooking for over 50 years, and it's quite unusual for a guy from India, because men don't cook. My father never learned how to even boil a glass of water, make any tea. But we have 4 brothers, I have 3 younger brothers. If my mom got sick, so I had to take care of the family. So I learned to cook, and I discovered I really enjoyed it, and got pretty good at it too. So over 50 years, I probably cooked over 500 different dishes from all different cuisines all over the world. So I'm really a serious foodie. And I'm really very seriously interested. I'm a curious person. I'm very curious about history. How things happen, why they happen, when they happen. Same about food too. How food evolved, why cuisines are so different in different parts of the world. And one of the answers that I came up with was, in the beginning, before any nations were formed, before anything was around, when people just emerged on this planet. So they emerged in little groups in millions of places in the world. And the very first thing that we have to do when we are born, we have to eat. They figured out what to eat, and everybody figured out things differently. And those differences, different things evolved in different places. So for one example would be like rice and potatoes. They are simple staples, but they are cooked in myriad of different ways in different cuisines all over the world, because everybody was thinking independently about them. So it was same thing with India too. And there is so much to cover. I have changed this presentation many times because it's like standing on a crossroads, which direction I want to go into. And wherever you start going, you just keep going there, and others get neglected, right? So, but in order to understand anything about a place, you have to know something about its history. So I'm going to spend about 10 minutes on the history of India and its culture. And next word, Ayurveda, that's extremely important. This science, the health science that was developed over 5,000 years. And the pieces of it, of course, the other central tenet of this thing was to understand what should people eat and how should they stay healthy. I'll talk about spices and their benefits. These spices have a huge history, very complicated history too. We'll come to that, and then I'll move on to Indian cuisines and basic Indian cooking, and so on and so forth. First of all, it's not easy to talk about India. I should know, I come from there. It's huge, it's complex, it's very confusing. 1.4 billion people. Now, in 1964, I remember it feel like time capsule. It's a different country. At that time, in our house, we did not have any electricity. There's no gas. My mom used to prepare the stove. They call chulas. They were clay stoves. I'll show you some pictures a little bit later. And we used to cook on that. So I often tell people that I grew up on gourmet food. Our food was charcoal grilled every day, twice a day. And there are 22 official languages. I mean, official languages mean as different as Chinese and English. The script is different, talk different, completely different. But they're official, and millions of people speak them. Every major religion of the world is people celebrate that in India. Hundreds of festivals. Probably there is some festival every day in India somewhere with some significance. Dozens of regional cuisines. And that's the thing when people start talking about Indian food, they know such thing as one Indian food. There's so many. And also they know such thing as curry. But everybody talks about curry, and I'll try to describe what actually it is. And of course, thousands of years of history. Now history, this might be surprise to some people. India was once the richest country in the world, and then it became the poorest. So what happened? Rich times. From 1st century to 17th century, India controlled 1/4 to 1/3 of the total world's wealth. This is all on Google, encyclopedia, everything. How did that happen? The answer is spices. Spices were the most valuable commodity in the world for over 400 years. Spices were gold. And then, why did India become poor? Because all the money was coming from spices. India was invaded many times for its spices and the other riches. And what were the other riches? They're like cotton, textile, other raw materials. So first Portuguese came, Dutch came, British came, French came, and they all came on the spice route. I'll show you the map on the next one. And they came to trade spices. And another thing is, India was never really a big country. And that's why these guys managed to conquer and find a foothold in India. It was a cluster of thousands of small princely states. So there was no federal government, so to speak. They were organized, and they probably never thought they would be invaded that way, they didn't have any navy. In any case, that's history, that's what happened. So when British came, they transferred all the spice and raw material wealth that made India rich to Britain. So Britain was industrialized and India was marginalized. And Britain even had planned at one time to even dismantle Taj Mahal for its marble. So thankfully that didn't happen. So this is the spice road, and what they traded was spices, cotton, silk, opium, and one thing I did not intentionally, I could not bring myself to put down was slaves. Slaves. So they were trading in spices, cotton, silk, opium, and slaves, and this was the route right from here. They came from this Greece, Portugal, Europe, all along this route, all the way up to China. But India had the richest bounty of spices. This was like the gold was spread everywhere. But seasons change. From 1600 to 1900, for 300 years, spices dominated the global economy. Then, for 100 years, First World War, Second World War, oil was needed, and auto industry, cars were just coming up. So oil became the most important commodity. And you folks would remember the oil embargo of 1970s. So oil, and even until now, the oil politics really drives what is a huge impact on the world, what happens in the world. Middle East, Dubai, all these places became immensely rich oil. 2000 onwards, we're back in the game. We own the internet to a very large extent. Internet and digital economy, that is prevailing. And what's going to happen now? Who knows? AI, artificial intelligence, crypto, green economy. Who knows? What's going to happen to us? Who knows? Artificial intelligence. Computers will do the thinking as well. So as far as India comes, India became independent in 1947. It took almost 70, 80 years, but now it is once again thriving and is the fifth largest economy in the world. Now, but still, like I said, I've been living here for 40 years. I still visit India every year, at least every other 2 years. And the culture is still there, it survives. It is diluted to a great extent, but people take pride in the culture. And one interesting thing is, when I was going to school in India, in middle school, I suppose, our first class used to be, there was school assembly. And one of the old scholar types, we call them rishis or Brahmins, they will come and there was a prayer. And after prayer, there was a lecture about what they call dharma. Dharma is the old wisdom, ethics, way of life. And as 7, 8-year-old kids, we did not really pay much attention to it, but we had to sit through it. But somehow it gets in. And when at this age, all that stuff is placed in the head. It comes out how important that stuff was. And if you really believe in it and pay attention to it, it really helps you. So that ancient culture still survives. Now let's talk about spices. This is a spice box. I'll explain in detail one by one in a minute. On the top left is something like cloves. Next is mace. Then is cumin, red chili powder, fenugreek, and a few other spices. This is a nice looking picture. Well, I'll explain each item to you in the next one, because that really is the spices is what distinguishes this cuisine from other cuisines. These are the basic Indian spices. Without these, we cannot cook Indian food. Jim knows something about it. Powders. So we have to have both whole spices and powdered spices. In powder, turmeric. A lot of people in America know about turmeric, and people became aware of turmeric, I think, when Dr. Oz came on TV. He started talking about it, and before long, then we started seeing turmeric capsules in Costco and different places. But taking turmeric capsules is really the wrong way to go. That's not how it should be consumed. Because they extract just the one active ingredients out of it. It's hard to digest because all the other ingredients that are taken out, they have to digest it and benefit from it. So turmeric, coriander, red chili, Kashmiri chili, which is a little different, garam masala, which is a blend of many other spices in the middle. And these vegetables, they would fall into vegetable category, but they're essential for making any Indian dish. And here are some more spices. They are not used on a daily basis, but they are necessary for making certain curries, if you will. The non-vegetarian dishes, you absolutely need this stuff. But in all, they're really not that many. In total, probably there are about 25 that are used. Now, key spices with medicinal and curative properties. All of these are extremely healthy and they cure a lot of ailments, protect the body against many different things. I'll cover them. Turmeric. This is probably the most beneficial. In my opinion, I think turmeric, garlic, and ginger are the most important things. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, it boosts immunity, helps with cholesterol, joint health, improves circulation, skin, and more. Now this one you should find really interesting. This is a pre-wedding ceremony in India which still happens. 1 week before the wedding day, both bride and groom, they rub turmeric paste on their body. Every evening, maybe 10-15 minutes or so. And then washed out. Now, its color doesn't stay. When turmeric color, it evaporates in sun in 10 minutes. But it makes skin really glow and become luscious. So that is going on for centuries. They've been doing that, and it still happens. So really beneficial for skin. I'm glad I didn't have to do that. I got married to my wife, Ginny, here. So if turmeric would have been very expensive, it would have probably cost me $500 to get turmeric. Who knows, for that much of it. So, ginger. Ginger, I use it all the time. It alleviates nausea, it's aid in digestion, anti-inflammatory, rich in probiotics, lowers cholesterol, controls blood sugar, really soothes sore throat and more. This stuff really, really works. I'll tell you in a minute, it really helped me today morning by doing something. Garlic. Garlic is just great. Best way to use garlic is 1 clove first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, and it's very, very strong, so you have to chew it with some water. And if you manage to do it, it's great. It's probably one of the best thing out there to clean out the toxins in the body. Antifungal, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, fights common cold. It is even proven to reduce dementia risk, improves the heart health, and many other benefits. Cumin. Cumin has cooling property, it really cools down the body. When I traveled to India, and I traveled in the southern part is very, very intensely hot. And you go to traditional restaurant, they still serve cumin-infused water with the food. So after eating the hot, spicy food, it cools you down inside. Very healthy. Coriander, antimicrobial, lowers the blood sugar, helps release more insulin. Cinnamon, people know something about cinnamon, high antioxidants, reduces the risk of heart disease, maintains good cholesterol. There is some recent research that has proven that it shows benefit, that it helps against Alzheimer too. Clove. Cloves are still used, the clove extract, clove oil, dentists use to help with toothache and to many other areas in dental treatments. That helps with digestion, it balances the blood sugar. And now let's come to the origin of Indian cuisine. Now I wish I could just talk about this stuff Ayurveda. It will take at least a week, if not more, even to touch on it. There's just so much to it. These guys, they were researchers and scholars maybe 5,000 years ago. They studied everything, how the universe was formed, and by universe I mean every living and non-living thing, mountains, rivers, humans, creatures, everything. They studied everything out there. And that will become a long discussion, so I'll just very briefly mention that. Out of the whole thing, I just taken out one piece that relates to the food. So what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda means knowledge of life. India, they call it a Vedic society. And Ayur means life and Veda means knowledge. So Ayurveda literally means knowledge of life. So what did they do with it? They studied the human body in minute detail. Even 1,000 years ago, or even more than that, they had even figured out surgery. They understood every part of the body, how it functions. Okay? And it is the world's oldest medicine and healing system, over 5,000 years old. And it is still practiced very much in India, in all the major hospitals. Now they have integrated medicine, Ayurveda is there, and Ayurveda universities are everywhere, and the government ministry also, Federal Department of Ayurveda Education. But there's so much out there. It was a sad thing when British came to India, they decimated a lot of the older schools of knowledge and replaced them for only what they needed, which was just to extract the raw materials and take them out and replace that with a different kind of education system. But fortunately, the old knowledge is not lost, and a lot of effort is being made in reviving it. But this stuff is really something, so I still study it now since I'm retired, I have a lot of time in my hands. This is fascinating stuff. It describes how human body is created and how it functions. It focuses on holistic health, mind, body, and spirit. And it is also determined that different foods affect our body and mind differently. And then they discovered herbs and spices to stay healthy and prevent many diseases. So from perspective, their purpose was to provide food is nutrition for body and healthy living, but these guys went a step further. They discovered herbs with medicinal properties and converted them into spices, incorporated them into food to provide protection from many diseases on an ongoing basis. Now, you have to create a system if you want everybody to follow it, like a language, so everybody speaks it, right? You can invent a different language for everybody. So who are you going to convince to do this, do that, and you'll be healthy? So they created a system. They incorporated these herbs with medicinal properties as spicing the food itself. So by default, you take it on a daily basis. And people still do, but they do it wrong. So we'll come to that also. But this is not a bad time. Earlier, when I was a kid, food was cooked at home twice a day. There are hardly any restaurants anywhere. In fact, if we saw anybody eating out in a restaurant, we felt sorry for them. Maybe they don't have anybody at home to cook for them. And nowadays, the restaurant, the food has become a huge industry, promoted every day with all the internet and everything. And those good old or bad old days, whichever way you look at it, the life was managed actually much better than we do it now. Now everybody is working. Going to go out to work, there's nobody at home to take care of kids or cooking or whatever. So people come home from work, go out to eat. Now, in restaurant industry, there's huge competition. Who can make the food cheaper and tastier? Whether it's good for you or not. So that really doesn't matter. So the art of good cooking and good eating is being replaced by pricey and unhealthy foods. So Ayurveda, what they did, these guys, they classified food into 3 categories. What they call sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. I'll explain them to you. For tamasic, you can think of it toxic. So it just came to me yesterday, so I think that's a good translation. And that's what it really means too. Now, foods have personalities, they impact our personality. So sattvic, the 10% means 50 years ago in the past century, more and more people used to eat those kind of food, but not so much. One example is my own mother. She lived to be 87 years old in India. She passed away a few years ago. She ate these kinds of foods all her life. She never tasted even onion or garlic. And you'll know in a minute what I mean by that. So sattvic foods are natural, unprocessed, fresh vegetables, fruits and beans, good foods. They are nutritious and they digest well and they create a very peaceful and clear mind. Okay? So the personality of the people who eat sattvic, these kind of clean foods, if you will, it creates a calm and peaceful and happy personality. These people are good, easy life. Okay. Rajasic, that's 70%, and more people are gravitated toward these rajasic foods. And in this section, there's nothing really inherently wrong with that. What they do is, one good example is caffeine and sugar. It creates a buzz, makes you high. You want to do something, go out. It creates energy. In your working year, working life, you need the energy, want to be active, and people can eat these kind of food that caffeine, sugar, tobacco probably not that good. Heavily spiced, pungent, overly salted, and certain vegetables. These are most prevalent in this category. Their effect on the body is they're energetic, stimulating, and they create restless and agitated mind. Okay? So personality of these people are, I saw in the office all the time. In the working world, people restless energy. Let's do more, let's do more, let's do more. So, and it creates anxiety also, anger, impatience. I'm sure you know what I mean. Tamasic, that's the bad stuff. So like alcohol also fall in that category. Drugs, heavy meats, overripe or underripe food, deep fried foods, refined food. I would personally put fast foods also in that category. It makes people lethargic. They deplete the energy and make mind dull and lazy. It slows you down. The personality of people who rely on these foods is dull, lazy, tired, depressed. And even more than that, there was another study I read in New York Times just a couple of weeks ago. Now 2/3 of the US population, same in India too, now over 70% is overweight. And 1/3 people are obese. And the credit, or probably more than 1/3, it goes to what we put into our bodies. So it comes from that. So those are tamasic categories, but they're cheap, they're easy, and people enjoy them. So the Ayurveda's objectives were to keep people healthy and prevent diseases. And here is the summary of that. So they explored food and studied their effect on mind and body. They discovered culinary and medicinal herbs. Now, culinary herbs are only at most about 25, but 100 of other herbs that are used for medicinal purposes, and they're still the basis for all the medicine that is produced today. It comes from herbal, plant, and mineral extracts, and they're refined to in myriad ways, so they become a little tiny pill. So spices became part of daily meals and living. Spices made food taste better and provided protection against many diseases. And I already explained to you some of the spices that have medicinal and curative properties. And centuries later, these spices are still used every day in Indian cooking. But the problem is to make food tastier. They overly spice and overly oil it. So that's not the way it is supposed to be. We'll come to that in a moment too. This is my grandma. I first learned the cooking art, interest in cooking, watching her when maybe I was 5-6 years old, around those days. And that's the way our kitchens used to look like. This was not our kitchen, but it's very similar to what the kitchen looked like in those days. Those stoves were made by bricks and clay by hand. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, he made those kind of things. And they had to be redone every 6 months or so. But the food tasted great. Even after 50 years, somehow my dishes don't come out the same as grandma's, who call her nani. And there's magic in the hands, whatever. So it just doesn't come out the same. Jim knows something about it. So again, very similar to, this is not from my family, but that's precisely what the old kitchens look like. Now, this is what we call chapati. This is still eaten every day in millions, hundreds of millions of homes in India, in North India. We call chapati. And this is actual meal from my brother's home about 2 years ago when I was visiting. It's the same kind of chapati. Then you put a little bit of clarified butter on top of it, that's called ghee. So when it's pressed down and oil a little bit, that's what it looks like. On top right is a lentil dish. And lentils, pulses, legumes, you'll see that in a little bit. So they are eaten almost every day. They're very high in proteins, vegetarian, very healthy. On the left of it, top left, there's a dish made with yogurt and dumplings. And below that is a dish with potatoes and green bell peppers. Very popular. Now, India cuisine is so vast, it's very hard to say there is such cuisine, right? In North, then there's sub-regions, and every color that you see on the map of India, and within that there are different shades in each one, and they all have their own distinct cuisines. They taste very different, some similarities, but they're very different. Especially from region north to south and east to west, very different cuisine. Today I'll show you some example north and south, so it will be impossible to cover everything. But the reason I picked north and south, when North Indian foods, what we call curries and all, that's what that is served in most restaurants in the world. South Indian food has still not reached on such a wider scale, except in big cities, now like California or New York and Chicago, where after the internet, a lot of people came from those parts to work, and people opened restaurants of that kind of cuisine to serve them. Now, Indian food were influenced by centuries of invasions. India was invaded at least about 15 times. So Mughals and Mongols, they came from Persia and they come from about China, those areas. They came for territories. They want to expand their empire. And they brought the curries, the chicken curry, mutton curry, and so on and so forth. And they brought barbecue. So all the kebabs and tandoori stuff that you see in the clay oven, they cook the stuff. That was brought to India by Mongols. And everything that came, it stayed there. Very, very popular food. Portuguese, they bought a different kind of curry called vindaloo. And they brought wines, port wine. And Goa, on the western coast above Mumbai. So that was still a Portuguese colony as recently as 1961. So after I was born. And beautiful beaches. It reminds me of the hippie days in the 60s, flower children. Yeah, I can still smell those flowers. Yeah, that was great. There's some other interesting story for that in our group later on. So those were, so they brought the Vindaloo and wines. Dutch, they were there for quite a while too, but they did not have much of an influence on the Indian cuisine. French, people would be surprised. French were there for about 200-300 years. And all the Portuguese, Dutch, French, and British, they all came for the spice trade, and then one thing led to another. So much so, they were the rich. India, British called that the jewel in the crown. And the biggest jewel in the world, Kohinoor, so they took away from India, and that still became part of the British crown. So French, they brought stew and croissant, and in Puducherry, one of the states in South India, they still teach French. In restaurant, they serve French stew. They serve bouillabaisse, one of my favorite stew, right? Yeah. In a couple of years ago, so I was in Saint-Tropez. Man, so they charge like over 400 euros for a bowl of bouillabaisse. There I can get it for 50 cents. So, and then the British did not bring any food. Actually, so it's sad to say they did not really bring much, they only took away everything. So, and now Indian cuisine has become British national cuisine. So, yeah. But one thing I would say, I love British literature. I love their poetry, especially The Road Not Taken. And that comes to my mind many times. I could have taken a different road too. So many of us do. Anyways, so Indian food, what is it made of? Grains, oils, spices, beans, vegetables, dairy, meats. And this really complicated thing on the right, so it's very confusing. But in some restaurants, they still serve, it's called thali, a plate with so many dishes. They serve it like that. And it becomes extremely confusing. When I get something like that, I can taste about 2-3 of them. And the one that I like, I keep going back to that and leave the other untouched. But they did that. It's a tradition. North India, that's where I am from. Now, North and South are very different. I mean, I'm so glad that they did not break down the Taj Mahal. So that's Taj Mahal, and everything is different. The architecture is just an example. In North India, they eat more wheat, rice, and corn. Other grains are eaten too, but not quite so much. And a typical meal would have their different kind of breads. You will have at least one bread, one dal or lentil dish, one sabzi, that's a vegetable dish, one curry, if one is non-vegetarian, which majority of India is still vegetarian. But people who eat non-vegetarian food, they will have one of the curries. And also steamed rice or a pulao, which is like a stir-fried rice, that is also served. And there's always a yogurt dip. It cools down, has probiotics, helps with the digestion. They always have some pickles also, and some chutney, which may be coriander, mint, green chili, and many other things in their digestive healthy. Now there are different, many kind of breads. One was that I showed earlier, the fluff thing, that is cooked on stove tops at home. These kind of breads are not cooked at home. They're intricate, they're cooked in restaurants, they're cooked in clay oven. And small homes, in multi-story buildings now, in the apartment, how can you possibly have a clay oven? Can't do that. So they make them in the clay oven. This kind of bread is called roti. It's made with whole wheat flour. This one is made with more with refined flour, the same process, but this is, it stretches like pizza a little bit, and this is eaten more with curries, like mutton curry or chicken curry. Then with paratha, this is a stuffed bread. You can stuff it many different kind of mashed potatoes with some spices and different other things, roll it and cook it on a hot plate. And these are deep fried, very popular. These are usually eaten as a snack in between during the day. And with a garbanzo dish, that is there. Steamed rice. Basmati rice is probably the most fragrant and the healthiest rice there is. And this is what referred to pulao, is stir-fried rice. This is Indian style cheese, they call it paneer, similar to cottage cheese. Or more like tofu, we chop them into small pieces. Moong dal, there are many kind of dals, they are called dals, legumes, lentils, and very high in protein, with a large population being vegetarian, and it's very tasty. This is a little bit heavier. This is made with like black lentils, and you put a lot of heavy cream in it, becomes a heavy dish, but tasty. This is one of my favorite, aloo gobi, means potato and cauliflower. So many Indian vegetarian dishes are made with potatoes and one something else. So this one is potato and spinach. This one is spinach and those cottage cheese kind of thing, we call it paneer. This one is okra. I couldn't find good okra here, so I started growing. Now I have 6 plants and they're doing really pretty good. I love them, yeah. But the thing is, you have to plant them every year. Takes a lot of care too. And that is for somebody like me, being born and raised in big cities, I didn't know that carrots and potatoes are root crops. So I thought they hang from the trees. And so I tried to grow carrots, didn't do very well, but I grow a whole bunch of other vegetables, just love it. Butter chicken, probably the most popular dish in the restaurants. Heavy, not super healthy, tastes great. Chicken curry. So chicken with gravy. What curry really means is, curry is any dish with sauce or gravy is curry. You can vegetable curry, mutton curry, chicken curry. We'll see some examples here. This is mutton curry. And mutton in India, it means goat meat. And fish curry. And the shrimp curry. It's a curry galore. And raita. So there always, every meal, there'll be some yogurt in some form. Either it's a plain yogurt, you put a little salt in it, little salt and pepper, or don't put anything in it. Sometimes they put some stuff in it, so then they call it raita. Green chutney, it is made coriander, mint, ginger, a bunch of other spices, green chili, digestive, and with things like tandoori chicken or tikka, and you dip in that, tastes great. And here are the sweets, which I can't eat, I have diabetes. So these are whole wheat flour dumplings, first deep fried, and they're infused in sugar water. Not healthy at all, very, very popular. And this I love. This is Indian style ice cream called kulfi. It's much richer, very creamier, and that also served. They don't make anything easy in India. It has to be served with something else, right? What's wrong with kulfi by itself? No, but they won't do it. This comes from Calcutta, from the East India. It's a spongy cheese and dipped in something like condensed milk. Very tasty, very popular. And in the heat, thandai, the word itself means cooling. After a hot meal, you drink this kind of shake made with milk and nuts and some other infusions, and the cooling effect in the body. Now we come to South India. In South India, look at the difference between Taj Mahal and this one. This is an actual temple. It's hard for me to imagine how they made something like this. It's about 10 stories high, such intricate carvings, architecture. Some is stone, some is wood, and just amazing. And this is several hundred years old, or maybe more, I don't know. And they also eat breads, rice. They eat a lot more rice in South India than breads, but everything is made very different. Their vegetables, same vegetable, cooked differently, same spices, used in different sequence, fish fry, and salt spicy blend. Now look at the difference. I showed you from North India, there was a round thing, round plate with all kind of 15 different dishes. This one, they still serve this kind of meal in Kerala. Kerala is two words, Kara and La. Kara means coconut, La is land, the land of coconut. I go to Kerala almost every year. Beautiful beaches, fully clean, pristine, lot of greenery. And they are very preservation minded. Everything is biodegradable. Whatever is not eaten goes and becomes compost. They serve food on the banana leaves. They cook in banana leaves. The food is wrapped in banana leaves. These are steamed vegetables in banana leaves. And this is made from a rice and lentils batter. This is their version of the bread from the North India. It's called dosa. Even my wife likes it. And that's pure coconut chutney in the middle. Nothing in there except the grated coconut and just blended. And they put some little spices in it. On the left, it's called sambar, a dip. You put this dosa, this dish into it. And this is just to give an illustration. They're crisp. You break them by hand into little pieces. You don't use knives and forks for this kind of stuff. You have to break them by hand, get your hands dirty, and then you eat it that way. And sambar, this is what you use to dip your dosas in. And this is more like this, almost looks like a burrito. This is called a South Indian burrito. So, and those are donuts, those are bean donuts. They are called vadas, and you eat them. This is typical in many restaurants. That's how they serve you a breakfast in South India. And these are like rice cakes. Another kind of bread. So with raised flour, this is cooked on stove top, different variations of that, another type of bread. And they eat rice also differently. They use a lot of lemon and the peanuts. And this is probably the most famous dish from South India. Not for South India, it become popular all over India, in UK, in California, we saw it everywhere. Very intricate dish called biryani. This is chicken biryani, but even the more popular one is mutton biryani. Very, very intricate. From the house of the Nawabs of Hyderabad. It was perfected over centuries, and there are many different versions for it. Delicious. I have not been able to do full justice to it, but I tried once in a time. When you make it, whole neighborhood smells of spices. Mutton curry. You'll notice the curries from South India look a little different than from North India. And their fishes, they are also cooked a little differently. This is from Andhra, another South Indian state. These are fried fish. Whole fish, cooked in banana leaf. This is one of their desserts, extremely sweet. I don't know how they handle it, but it's very popular in South India. And this is again from the house of Nawabs, Hyderabad. Nawab of Hyderabad was one of the richest person in the world. And the story, and he was a really miser. So much so, when some guests will come to visit him, the story goes, when they're smoking, he'll wait for them to finish half the cigarette. And then ask them to leave, so that he can smoke their leftover cigarette. Really, and those are really true stories. Some people from those times, they're written, and he was the richest guy. And their story goes that in his courtyard, in his palace, there some trucks were parked there. And they were covered and loaded. They loaded with jewels and whatever, gold. So some reporter asked him, "Okay, sir, why do you keep the stuff here?" He said, "Because my basement is full." So I wish I had taken some. Indian cooking, getting started. So these are if you want to try Indian cooking anybody, this is a must-have. You cannot cook without this stuff. On the top right is the first thing. I put a picture there. This tin is called ghee. Ghee is what? It's clarified butter. It's one of the cleanest thing to cook with, and it is used all over. But I personally, I like to cook with avocado oil. So, I'm sorry?
What is it?
Avocado oil. Yeah. So I like it's very, very healthy, it's clean, it doesn't solidify. Whereas with the ghee, you cook a dish, it solidifies. So a dish becomes a little bit funny if I want to store it for a few days. So, and this is more, there's no fat in avocado oil, super healthy with oil. I tried with olive oil, but olive oil, and this is neutral. Olive oil leaves a little taste, so that affects the dish. This one doesn't. Cumin seeds, every single item there is necessary, cannot do without it. Turmeric powder, coriander powder, red chili powder, mango powder, garam masala, it is available in mixed form, but I make my own. You try to buy it from store, so it's not the same thing. So it doesn't taste quite the same. Salt, chopped onions, garlic, ginger, green chili, cilantro, lemon. With this stuff, you can do hundreds of dishes. So how do you do it? First you put a pan on the stove and heat it to about 350 degrees on medium high. So, not yet, just heat it up a little bit, then put oil or ghee in it. In 2 minutes, it will get to about 300 degrees. Then put some cumin seeds in it, bring them to sizzle. Then add some onions and green chilies. It needs to go in sequence. Then ginger and garlic, then powdered spices, then chopped tomatoes. And after that, then you can choose what vegetable you want to cook. Then you can do variation. The first steps are exactly the same. After you put the vegetable, you add a little water and then lower the heat. And cooking time will depend on what you're cooking. And after it is done cooking, you turn off the heat and garnish with some chopped cilantro. And you serve it with breads. In your handouts, I've given recipe for one dish there. Now, what is the secret of Indian cooking? There are really thousands of dishes, but many of them are cooked the same way. There are very subtle differences. You can do things in many, many different ways. But if you cook one, you can cook many. And two of the examples are, especially for pulses, legumes, dals. You know how to do one? You can do 10 different ones. Same for vegetable and same for curries. But curries are very, very intricate. You can do it, but after doing it, when you've done it 3 times, then you are not satisfied. You want to do something different. Then I have tried to do it like 15 different ways. And these days you go on the internet, you find other different variations. Yes, I want to do it too. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Dals, these are essentials, especially in North India. There are many different kinds. And here I brought in some sample recipes. They're about 3 minutes each. They'll give you an idea of how folks do it. First, we are soaking these lentils. It can be cooked either in pressure cooker or in stove top. And there are two-step process. The first part is to cook, soften the beans, and then you apply this treatment to it. That's what really makes it. Now they're adding different spices. Now think is, since both processes are separated, you can pick how much spice you want to add. If you don't like certain, don't add them. And that's the final garnish. And they had saved this stuff, some of the mixture earlier. I consider this part optional. This is extra spice that probably not needed, but it looks better, adds to taste as well. And that's it for this one. And I'll show you one sample of how chicken curry is done. First the oil, then some whole spices to flavor the oil, then chopped onion, ginger garlic paste. It goes into everything. Tomatoes, now brown spices, and this is marinated chicken. There is always a tempering process, they call it at the end, that gives extra zing to it. So you see, it gives you a little bit of an idea how these things are done. Now, diabetes diet. The Ayurveda, it claims that type 2 diabetes can even be reversed with strict diet control and yoga. And by strict means really strict. Right? The example, some people, actually I know some people who have followed the routine. I wish I could do it, but it takes really very strict discipline. It's not impossible to do it, but eat only certain foods. So, okay, how does it work? The cooking process is the same, except you go a little bit light with everything. But it what you eat, but the grains you choose. So all of these grains on the left, millet, barley, oatmeal, buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, all of these have low glycemic index. They are good. The veggies are all good for diabetes. Beans are very, very healthy. And some nuts are really good. And meat, they say for diabetes, avoid red meat, egg, chicken, and fish. They are all good for diabetes food. And then diabetes mantra, low carb, high fiber, high proteins, good oils, that is important. Olive, avocado, safflower, sesame works, protective spices, and people don't pay much attention to it, but including myself, more and more water. We keep flushing out the system, that's much better for diabetes. No saturated fats like butter, and not even that clarified butter, the ghee that I mentioned earlier. Something like avocado would be a lot better, and no processed sugars. So here is, I'm getting toward the end of my presentation here, is staying healthy. Now in this one, and there's a sheet along with your handouts, which lists these items, and I have more stuff on my website too. And garlic is great, fantastic, but keeping body clean of toxins. Turmeric and ginger, fenugreek, tulsi, ginger lemon honey tea. And the last item, when I got it this morning, I had some congestion and cough, and I made an infusion of these things: ginger, black pepper, garlic, turmeric. Let it simmer for about 10-15 minutes. Add a little honey to it and drink it. Honey should never be heated, though some even say in Ayurveda it becomes poison for the body. Honey should be mixed in later on in the hot dishes. So this really, if we really follow some of the common sense routines, it's really good, great for the body. And an Indian meal cannot be complete without some masala tea at the end. Not the Starbucks chai latte. That totally messes it up completely. So, and in the masala chai, masala means spices. There is all different kinds of spices. I use only two, ginger and cardamom. And that makes just great tea. And the final summary, Indian food is not just one cuisine, but comprised of many regional cuisines which are vastly different. Spices are the heart of Indian cuisine. There are only about 25. Most have medicinal properties. Curries are stew-like dishes that are sauce or gravy. They can be made of vegetables, chicken, mutton, beef, or fish. And good Indian food should not be overly highly spicy. I don't think I've been to an Indian restaurant in more than 10 years, or maybe even more. But wherever you go, just to make it look more colorful and taste a little bit more stronger, they add just too much oil and spices. So, and I do it myself. Many Indian spices can be used in infusions and teas on a daily basis as a protective shield from many ailments, boosting immunity and staying healthy. And this thing, your handout includes a feedback form. I'd really appreciate if you let me know, give me your suggestions. this is the first time I'm doing this to our senior community, and so the tag is different, more focused on the health. So hopefully, and so I would like to do these kind of things, keep doing that. And that's it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Where do you get all these spices? Where do you buy them?
I got, in medicine there are a couple of shops, and they have pretty good quality. For my personal use, when I visit India, I bring them from there. But this in medicine, there's a couple of really good shops near Woodman's on Gammon Road. Yeah.
Which one, which road?
On Gammon Road, near the West Town Mall, pretty much right next to Woodman. There are two shops there. If you're interested, I'll give the address.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. One is called Bombay Bazaar, one is called India House. So, they're good spices, yeah.
When you make your tea in the ginger, how much ginger do you put?
About, what I do is to make potato peeler. So I just peel a little bit. First I peel the ginger, then scrape on it. So instead of the other way would have been to crush it into something, then I lose some of it. So I just scrape thin layers of it, about a teaspoon. So first you boil some water and you throw ginger and you crush a couple of cardamom and put in there and let it boil in it for about a couple of minutes. Then you can put some milk in it, okay, about an ounce of milk, let it boil too. Then they use different kinds of tea leaves. Those are also available in the Indian stores. They call the yellow label or Brook Bond, about a teaspoon of tea. And boil all the mixture together, then you strain it. And then if you want to add some sweetener to it, you can add honey, or if you don't have any diabetes issues, then just I usually don't use white sugar. What is the other one called? The brown sugar, the window sugar or something. I like that kind of sugar. The purer the better. Then I use some sweetener. Yeah, that works pretty good.
Do you do the same thing with garlic? Do you like a press or do you like chopped or?
I like chopped, and sometimes I grate it on a fine grater, like microplane. So I do it in that too, yeah. But first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, every day I chew one clove. It has taken me some time to get used to it. They really burn your mouth. But then you drink a little bit of water with it, but you're getting inside the body to make this really good stuff. Cleans out a lot of bad stuff in the gut, purifies the gut, cleans out the bacteria, and good stuff.
How about garlic soaked in honey?
Huh?
I said, when are
Garlic
you going to have?
cloves soaked in honey, and then take a spoonful every day or whatever. Is that a medicine?
Garlic we usually don't soak. What you soak is at night, if on some way you get fresh turmeric. You don't soak turmeric powder, but fresh turmeric that looks like ginger, it's a root thing. You grate a little bit, about a teaspoon and teaspoon of ginger. So both grated ginger and turmeric together, you soak it at night and drink that water in the morning. Then you get all the benefits of it from it.
You say turmeric.
Turmeric.
Is that in a whole thing, turmeric or powder?
It's a whole thing also comes, that might be available in the Indian stores here.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks just like turmeric, yeah.
It's available at Basics in
The
Janesville.
basics?
Yeah, you can
okay.
get whole turmeric.
Right,
turmeric,
yeah, there you go, yeah,
They have whole turmeric.
yeah.
You gotta go to basics.
When are you gonna have a cooking class?
Pardon?
I said, when are you going to have a
Cooking class?
Just the tasting.
Man, the thing is, I would love to do it, I have no problem with it, but where do I do it? It's
Tasting.
He said, huh? Well, I don't mind, I'm retired. So, I'm looking for new friends, I don't have wrong with that. But we can do it, a lot more, if it's possible, we can do that and project it on the screen here. So people can watch the process, so I think it can be done.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you guys have some ideas, so just let me know.
I'll make some dollars.
I have just created this website, right? So there's not too much stuff there, but I'm interested. I'll keep on posting some recipes also. Because now I'm the same dude, right? So I know what works for you will work for you also, for all kind of folks too. It's not for the whole wide world. So we can put some good recipes there. Yeah, we can do it, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Any other question I can answer?
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not the honey, it's the honey.
I want to sit here for a minute. So, my name is Noel, I'm here.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Yeah, good job. You had a lot of studying up there.
Yeah, but you can like, fun thing, I used to do this kind of stuff all the time for work.
I used to reminded me work too. You know what reminded me of?
What?
South Carolina. You ever watched that? Have you ever watched that Channel 21 public television? Jerry App? It kind of reminded me when he was talking. Oh, really? He did that? Last week he had a thing on food. Jerry App, when he was growing up on the farm.
There's only one thing that was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
You know, that's what he